Welcome to the Empowered Women's Project, a podcast and community made by women for women to help you live your best life and reconnect you back to the things that really matter. Today, we are joined by an incredible friend and mentor of mine, Kym Shaw. Kym Shaw is a life coach. She is a super mama of 3. She's a successful businesswoman and also has really competed from an athletic perspective at a high level. And so today, we are talking all things around her journey and what she's really learned through sport, through raising a family, some of her younger lessons as well, how you can implement some change into your life, and particularly for any mamas out there who have teenage daughters. Kym works a lot empowering teenage girls to really define and create their own identity so that they don't get caught up in so much of the confusion that is out there nowadays for girls. I think back to when I was growing up and when social media didn't exist, and it's a completely different game. So she works closely empowering teenage girls, and you are going to get a lot out of this, whether you are a mama to be or if you have a girlfriend with teenagers. I really recommend you pass this podcast on as well. So let's jump in. Hey everyone, it's Kate here, and I'm so excited to be on with a special guest, Kym Shaw. I've known Kym, we were just working out before. It's almost 16 years since we first met at an Anthony Robbins seminar, something that's been a huge part of my life, and I know for Kym as well. And one of the things that I was, thinking about before we jumped on today's interview is the things that I have admired about Kym in her journey. She's a mama of 3. She's an incredible businesswoman. She's so incredibly loyal and connected to her family, and also has a real passion for helping people live their best life. And so Kym's probably a few years ahead of me as far as parenting and business and all of those things. I've always looked up to her and kind of gone, okay, what would she do in this situation? And I'm really excited to be sharing, her wisdom with you listening today. And so thanks for jumping on, Kym. I'm really excited.
I am so super excited for this, Katie. It's, as you were saying, like reminiscing about how we met and how long ago we met. And, I often think you will often say to me what you admire about the parenting and being a few years ahead. I find that really quite funny because I go straight to, okay, yeah, I may be ahead in age, but I'm not necessarily 100% sure I'm ahead with the parenting. But we're all learning all the way along, and that's something that I really love. Yeah.
That's it. Well, you're married to your high school sweetheart still, which is pretty special. And your kids are now kind of into their late teens and early 20s, which is really special too. But one of the things, we connected around personal development and being a part of Anthony Robbins events. And you have really stepped into an incredible leadership position within his company and the way that you're helping people, which is really special. But I know your leadership kind of goes way back to your days in the sporting field as well. So I'm excited to kind of hear some of that journey and how those lessons kind of have played out in life as well.
Yeah, I'm excited to share them. So
why don't you maybe share a little bit of your life story and kind of where your hunger for, learning to grow and become your best self kind of came from, so we can find out a bit more about you.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to. So I guess I have 2 older brothers, so we have a family of 5. We were brought up in Brisbane, had a holiday house down the coast, so we spent a lot of our time jumping in between homes, and we spent our younger years, and which turned into our teenage years, in sports. Our parents always had us in sports. I know that they would deliberately wanted us in sport, and I'm not 100% sure why, or if they were consciously aware of the lessons that those sports would give us, in particular myself, what I've become conscious about, and how I've used them in my life. But it certainly was a gift, and I'm forever grateful that they did do that. So I left school in year 10. It was a thing to do back then. You sort of only really stayed on to year 12 if you were going to go to university. So after I left year 10, I went into the legal industry and was a a receptionist, and then what you call a word processor operator, which was really just a glorified typewriter. And I worked in the legal industry and was typing at that stage for 5 different solicitors. So that was a pretty cool thing to be doing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was great. And then from there, I did some travel with a girlfriend. I had a real yearning for travel, and I loved that, and people. And I really started to learn that what I wanted to learn about people was, how does the mind tick? What is something, what makes us do what we do, and what drives us, I guess. And in those early years, my dad had actually nominated me to go to a Rotary Leadership Awards week-long personal development event. I won the award. I don't exactly know why, but I did. I won the award. I went along, made some incredible friends. Mind you, I went a little bit kicking and screaming because I was like, I don't need this, I don't, there's nothing wrong with me. So I sort of had that little bit of a resistance, and then I found it to be one of the best things that I actually ever did. And I think that's where my passion for personal development first started.
Amazing. And so it's interesting, sometimes our parents, as a well-meaning parent, we might see a potential or an opportunity for our kids, and kind of, when we meet it with resistance and it's like, no, I don't want to do it, just actually sometimes following through, because sometimes it's the greatest gift that we can end up passing on or receiving as well. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so I know you're really passionate about helping teenage, particularly girls as well, really kind of step into their power. And I think back to when I was a teenager and the pressures on us without Instagram and, photo, like all these things. I look at some of the photos when I was a kid, I'm like, oh my gosh, and you've probably got some of those haircut photos and whatever as well. But back then it didn't matter. And now there's this extra layer of pressure and I think social media and all of these things kind of bring a different stress and pressure to teenage girls. So I'd love you to share a little bit around your passions around that. I know you have a teenage daughter as well, and being able to help kind of guide them through what you've personally experienced growing up, as well as the insights you have around your coaching too.
Yes, so I honestly feel that life is a gift, and that we're put on this earth to make a difference, and to share what we learn and give to others, like pay it forward, I guess, is the general term that people can relate to. But you're right, there are so many pressures with social media. There's so many pressures with what other people think that you should be, how you should turn up, and also pressures from your parents, expectations from other people. And what I've found for me is that I lived so many years following what other people really wanted for me, and I enjoyed it because I was brought up in an environment where you strive to be happy. It was just one thing that you did. So I enjoyed everything that I was doing, but I was also narrowing off other opportunities and not taking other opportunities of things that were put in front of me, which could have made my life even more happy. And so I made a decision that with everything that I would learn along the way, as you said, through the Anthony Robbins environment, which I've now been in for over 20 years.
That's amazing.
So I'm one of his senior trainers now in the environment, and it's really, I've learned so much about myself and about other people, and it seems a shame that I wouldn't want to help other people. And the reason why I love working with women and teenage girls and boys in particular, girls in particular, but boys and girls. And the reason why I love it is because they will not build the same negative stories around their life experiences if they become more aware of who they are as a person.
I love that.
Yeah. And if I know some things or I have a little bit of wisdom that I can pass on and help guide them so that they don't make some of the same mistakes or choices or have negative beliefs about themselves along the way, that will help them create more success in areas that they want to create, I want to be there for them. So that's where, I guess that's my big why of reason why I want to do it. I want to be able to leave a legacy and inspire and help people design a life that they want on their terms. And when people start to understand what it is that they want in life, what drives them, what patterns are holding them back, and what they need in life, they really get the opportunity to create a life of their dreams and create whatever success that they want in any area, whether it be relationships, financial, career, sporting, health in particular. I'm extremely passionate about, because I believe the health is not just about the physical body, it's about the soul and the mind. Very much about that, and the spirit. So if I can help people do that, that's part of what I'm here for.
That's awesome. And with the people that you've been coaching over the years, do you find that do you see patterns or cycles where you see a lot of people trying to live up to other people's expectations or holding other people's opinions in a higher esteem than their own? And what are some of the big challenges that you've seen that a lot of people tend to be facing at some point in their life?
I think confusion, to be honest. I think people are looking at all these different images. Let's just say body image, for one. There's one that has come up recently, and it's about what is health. Is it about having a healthy body that works really well for you, that takes you where you want to go, that gives you the energy and the drive to want to get on and enjoy your life, or is it about what you look like? And if you have a look at social media and you think, okay, well, you want to have that big booty, or you want to not have that big booty because it just makes you look fat, and people are confused as to what looks great rather than just working with what they have and making it better. And I'm all for keeping life simple. And I think one of the biggest challenges is that people just get confused because they're looking at too many options, too much information that's out there, and not making choices based on what it is that they want. And I believe that if you want to make yourself a better version of yourself, you really need to know where you are to start with. So you really need to measure where you are so that you can, just become conscious about where you're at and not make decisions based on what other people think that you should look like or other people's opinions. So I think measuring, for me, it's really just about guiding them to measure where they are now so that they can move forward, because without knowing where you are, how do you know what better version you can become of yourself? You're just layering on someone else's beliefs, and you keep layering all these things on top, but you really forget who you are underneath.
And I think, when you're living up to all of these other expectations or supposed expectations of others, life gets heavy. There's not that joy and lightness to what you get to experience. So what are some things that people could do to assess where they are now in whatever part of life? Are there some questions they can ask, or is there a process that you would recommend to kind of have a bit of a self-assessment of, well, where am I at to start with before I figure out what I want?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just like to take it back to the real basics, and you can easily just write a list. What makes me happy? What brings happiness and joy into my life? And once you start writing, and then if you don't feel like you're coming up with enough, I always say to people, just keep writing. Come up with the smallest things. Keep things really simple. So it's seeing a beautiful sunflower. It's watching your friends smile. It's seeing your parents happy. It's seeing your children laughing. Keeping things really simple. A walk on the beach. What are some of the things that actually make you happy? Once you discover some of the things that make you happy, I think it then becomes easier for you to say, am I doing those things right now? How am I living my life right now? Am I living on the road to happiness? Am I actually living my life in a way that is going to take me towards happiness? And then once you realise that a lot of us aren't, and we're becoming very busy doing a whole lot of things that may not necessarily need to be done, it's a really good way of measuring. So, and you can do that for each area of your life. So you can there's plenty of life wheels out there actually on the internet. You can just Google what's your life wheel, and then on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you in your happiness in that space of your life? And I think that's really the place to start.
I love that, because I think most people, when you ask them, well, what would you love in your life? The list of that doesn't come to mind as easily as, well, I can tell you everything I don't want. I don't want to be this weight. I don't want to have debt. I don't want to have this. Like the list of what we don't want often is at the forefront of our mind than actually the things we want to move towards.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they're the answers you're coming up with, well, I don't want to be in an unhappy relationship. I don't want to be overweight and unhappy. Well, then you just need to ask that one question. What is it that I do want instead? And if you add the instead onto the end of it, that's what's going to be the thing that's going to help give you the answer.
That's awesome, because it really, as we've learned through Tony, the quality of our life comes down to the quality of the questions we're asking ourselves. And a lot of us, and I think what I love about the work you're doing, particularly with teenagers, is you're teaching them strategies and questions that they can be asking themselves that their parents didn't know. Like I look at what I've learned and being able to teach my 8-year-old daughter some quality questions that I think back to when I was that age or as a teenager, and it's more like, why me? What's wrong with me? All of these other things, instead of actually flipping it and being able to be empowered in situations instead.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can even really stack on that too, is once you come up with the answer of what it is that you do want, you can just say, what else do I want? Because we can have it all. There's no reason that we actually can't have it all. And if you're asking, like you say, those quality questions, you're going to get quality answers out of them. But if you're saying, why me? Why does this always happen to me? How come I'm like this? Why am I never good enough? You're going to get answers to those questions. And they're not going to serve you. So it's what do I love about myself? What are my strengths? How can I put them into practice? Who do I know who's already done this that can help me get what it is that I want?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And for, I guess, parents listening right now, if they're observing, and obviously we need to go first, but if they're observing in their teenagers those questions coming up, what's a gentle way of helping them ask something differently? Because, some teenagers, I don't have experience of having one as my child just yet, but you think about some just like, mum and dad, whatever. But, it's being able to have the conversations. And I know you've done a beautiful job of that with your kids and the teenagers that you work with.
I think it's honestly about entering into their world, trying to understand where they're coming from and not put expectations on them. So it's about spending time with them in a space where they feel comfortable, and then being able to say to them, look, can you help me? Can you help me understand? I'm not really sure what it's like to spend a day in your shoes. What's it like to spend a day in your shoes? What's it like to be in your world?
I like that. I remember a conversation. I think we were out to dinner with some girlfriends, and you were sharing how you learned that conversation time was actually really good in the car, one on one with your kids. Can you talk into that? Because I loved that when you shared.
And I sort of make fun of that because it's so true. Once I learned that I could just sit there, the children, your children don't feel they don't feel intimidated by you. But they also can't go anywhere. So you can ask them a question, and because you're traveling somewhere, generally they want to be going with you to where they're going. So you're already doing them a favor. So you're sort of like banking into their emotional bank account along the way, and you just start asking questions and start talking. But I think one of the biggest things that I've learnt is to just understand that we're human as well, and we want them to understand that we are really human, and share some stories that we have of our own past and our own experiences, and then start the conversations going that way. And certainly on the way to school, it was always a great opportunity to be able to bring up conversations around life, around matters, around lunch boxes. It doesn't really matter what it was. It didn't always have to be deep and it just had to be meaningful.
Yep.
And I think that's what was important to me.
And because you were both looking forward, it wasn't like eye contact in this serious conversation. You found they opened up more to you than they typically would have had it been, across the table or something.
Absolutely. And they were usually being a little bit fidgety or looking outside at what the weather was doing, and the words were coming out of their mouths often without even knowing.
Yeah.
And another tip is to ask some great questions while their friends are in the car. Because if their friends are in the car, the friends might answer or your child may answer, but then you've all of a sudden got a group conversation and that third party in there that can add something more to the conversation. So I always found that very valuable as well.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Earlier as well, we were discussing before we started the interview, just some areas of life, kind of like the 3 R's that you really kind of learnt through sport and other parts of life that you see as a big pillars in your life and how to move forward. Can you speak a little into that?
Absolutely, would love to. I became conscious of this a few years ago that I came up with for one of our workshops to talk about respect, responsibility and resilience. And when I was going over what my life story was about, I realised I got those in my early days of playing sport. But when you're part of a team, whether it's a single sport or whether it's a team sport, you still have to have respect. The first one is respect. You must have respect for yourself to be able to step out on that field or on that court or to dive in the pool, whatever it is. And with that, there's always a coach. There's some sort of competitor. There's someone that is always going to be beside you, whether it be your parents or your husband or your wife or your children, but there's always going to be someone there. So having respect for yourself and others, I think, was a really big thing I learnt straight up. The next one is responsibility. When you're part of a team, whether it be a family team, a workplace team, or a sporting team, whatever team it is, it may be just a team of girlfriends, like you said, when we're out for it. To me, that's still part of a team. We all have a responsibility to show up in a way that can make a difference and help others, lift each other up. And I believe that's what responsibility is. And then the third one's resilience. I was always one that wanted to make sure I was on that team. I wanted to be in the run-on side. I wanted to play the position that I wanted to play because that's where I felt my most happiness in that sport. So there were times that I didn't make the team and I didn't make the run-on side. And they were the best lessons that I ever had. It made me a lot more resilient. And so that later on down the track in my life, I found that if I ever have any challenges, they are three things that just keep popping up, like if I've got a challenge and I want to make a difference, well, I have to come at it from a respectful space. I've got a responsibility to make that challenge right or better. And I also, I've got that resilience that I've built up over the years. So when you have a challenge, and life does throw us challenges, you need to have a resilience. So they're my three lessons that I have lived by, and I'm so grateful for playing sport to be able to receive those lessons and learn them over the years and do something with them.
It's interesting touching on sport, and it's played a huge role in my life as well. When we were obviously growing up, there was always a scoreboard. So there was a winner and a loser. And some days that was great, and then other days that sucked. But you learn how to you dealt with different emotions through that, and sometimes it might not have been fair, but it prepares you for life in a way, because sometimes things happen that aren't fair. Sometimes someone does do the wrong thing. Sometimes you win and then life is sweet, and then other times it doesn't go that way. And it's interesting now with a lot of sports up until a certain age, there's actually not a scoreboard. There is this kind of like where you're just playing to play. And I think it's lovely as well. Is it actually, I'm curious to hear your thoughts, is it actually helping create resilience in kids to be prepared for, when it doesn't necessarily go to plan? Because one of the things I've observed in our traditional business, we hired a lot of, we had 7 businesses over the years, hired a lot of people. And an observation that I saw as a trend was that there were many people that were lacking resilience, that they didn't have that real, that go-getter attitude that I guess I grew up with. I don't know if that just came from my parents or different circumstances and that kind of came out in me. But, if you see people that are really going for it in life and are putting themselves out there, they have resilience. It's absolutely a key part of that journey as an athlete, as just someone, going for that job or going for that relationship, whatever it is, there's resilience there. So I'd love to know your thoughts around that.
As far as resilience, I think your initial question was just playing sport for the idea of playing sport. I think it's a situation specific. So if you're playing in a club situation, or you're playing in a situation where you want to be competitive, and then you're out there just playing for the sake of playing, I think there's a fine line. I think it's great to be in a space that makes you happy. So if you want to be competitive, go into a competitive sport. If you want to just go and play for the sake of playing, I think it's great, because it's really good for your health, and we should all be out being active. As far as the resilience that goes with it, I do believe that over time some of the resilience has been almost stripped of some people, because everything has become so politically correct over time that it's really nice to be able to award everybody a ribbon and cheer everybody on. I get that. It also doesn't teach. I think there's so many lessons in sport, and anybody I know, as you say, that is successful has a lot of resilience. And I think it's important that if children aren't going to actually learn it through a sport, to learn it in some other way. And it's really important. And I think it goes back to the responsibility. It's the responsibility of the parents to help the children, let them fall. It's okay to not win every time. It's okay to not get everything that you want all the time, because that's when you grow. That's when you really learn what it takes to be able to make happen what you want happen in life. And if you've got teenagers and they want a new car, the way that they'll often learn is to save up themselves, not necessarily just giving it to them. That's just an example into my head. And I think it's really super important. And I also think as mentors and as bosses, I think they should help bring and grow their staff. And if their staff fail, just help them learn what's the new thing rather than think, and just keep letting them fail and then get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I think that's where responsibility comes in as well. I think resilience is one of the biggest things in life.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things I've observed in over the years since knowing you is you're so hungry to learn and to better yourself in different ways, whether it's your fitness. I mean, you played sport at a really high level, whether it's your health, there's always another level. Where does that hunger come from, and how, who are some of your mentors, I guess, that you have really kind of helped shape that for you?
My dad was definitely a really strong role model in my life growing up. My mum was really active as well in sport until she had children. So she had her stories as well, and she was just like she had a lot of fight in her. And she was not very tall, but she would always say, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. So that saying would always, keep ringing in my ears. But my dad was sort of like, if I would get upset and start, it's not necessarily even about sport, about anything, and I was becoming unreasonable, he would say, I love you. Now go to the bathroom, wash those tears away and come out with a smile on your face, and then we can talk about it. So I was just gradually, the negative patterns were gradually being, washed away or made smaller, and then he would make the happiness shine. And then I think that really helped create resilience over time.
Yeah. What beautiful lessons from your parents as well.
The other thing that comes to mind, Katie, is in my older years after I've had children, is I feel like I can't be asking of other people what I'm not prepared to do myself. So if my children want to do well in sport, I feel that they need to be able to see someone, who they love and admire that is doing the same thing, who is digging deep. And you can't just rely on the third party of the school or the role models in that sport. You really got to help carve that path and be the leader for your own children. So that's what would drive me to, if I wanted to be asking more of my children or encouraging more to the point of my children so they could achieve what they wanted, I needed to be prepared to take actions in different areas and make myself stronger and smarter and wiser and healthier as well.
I love that. It's interesting. Sometimes we speak into our children and we tell them you can do anything you put your mind to, and we say all these beautiful things, yet we aren't saying that to ourselves, and we're not maybe backing ourselves or putting ourselves in that uncomfort zone to be able to stretch and grow and show them. And as we know, children don't do what we tell them to; they do what they see us doing. And so, I think that's a really beautiful point that you touch on, because it doesn't mean you have to go and become an elite athlete so that they can too, but it's them seeing you as a role model, stretching and getting outside of the comfort zone.
Absolutely. I mean, if I'm lying on the couch eating Tim Tams all day and I'm saying to my child, okay, you need to go out and go for a run around the block because you need to be healthy, it's going to give that whole confusion, that message we were talking about before, that gives a confusion. And then their minds, then they start doing things out of obligation, and they're not necessarily doing things because it feels right. So then they have that push-pull inside of confusion. Makes life complex. Life doesn't need to be complex.
No, it doesn't. And I like what you said just back earlier, just writing a list of the things that bring you joy, the things that make you happy. It doesn't have to be this intricate thing. It can be the simple things like like walking your dog or going on the beach or playing with your kids. Or the other night we had a huge, ridiculous pile of washing, which is not enjoyable at all. But we turned it into fun by having some quality time with the family, and we were throwing clothes at each other and folding them and having this bit of a game. And it's like, you can bring fun. You just got to ask the right questions first before you go into a certain situation to kind of put a spin on things. But like you said, most people just aren't even asking themselves those questions to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point, because if you're going into folding the washing and you're dreading every bit of it, of course it's not going to be fun. But
Yeah.
it's like, how can I make this fun, and how can I include other people in this and enjoy the process?
Yeah.
It's like when you go to clean the house. How can I enjoy this? So you put on some music, or you listen to a podcast, or whatever it is that it's going to help you enjoy it a little bit more, rather than resent that mold that you're trying to scrub off the shower.
Oh, I love it. I'd love to know, what are some of your favourite quotes that have inspired you over the years?
Oh, wow. Okay, so this one I've just probably in the last 6 months, I've really, really taken to, and it's not something that I didn't know about before, but it's just one of my new favourites, and it's just, your thoughts about everything create your destiny. Be careful what you think, because what you think you will eventually say. What you say, you will eventually become your actions, and your actions will become your habits, and your habits will become your destiny. Because there's that flow-on effect for everything that we do and everything that we say. So I love that one. Another one is always be the leading lady of your own life. It's by Audrey Hepburn.
I like that.
Yeah, I think it's fun. It's great to have that. I mean, I'm the one that's responsible for my own life. No one's coming to rescue you. No, and we had this conversation not that long ago, when I was going through a few challenges earlier on in the year. I've got lots of people around me to support me, which is awesome. So they can come to the gym with me, but I've got to lift the weights. Mm-hmm. I'm responsible. So,
yeah, I love that. I have another question. I think I know the answer, but I need to know. Morning tea or happy hour?
Oh, yeah, happy hour.
I knew it.
I definitely love happy hour. I do love my cup of tea.
I know.
Pretty much, if I'm awake for 16 hours of the day, it's with me probably 14 hours of the day, my tea. But I rarely have scones.
Really have scones. I love it. And just in wrapping up today, and I'm so grateful for everything that you've shared. And I know there's probably many more podcasts that we can be doing around some specific topics. But is there any particular tips that you'd like to leave us with today with what we've spoken about?
I would probably say take time to take time. If we take time to be with yourself, get to know yourself, and be present with others. That's one of the biggest things that I learned. I learned it many years ago now, but I was, it's like a little social butterfly everywhere. And it's really great to have that, and to, be a people person and love to have lots of friends, but it's also really important to get to know yourself. So take time to take time. And the other thing I would probably say is just choose to be happy and just choose to have fun in life. We can. Yeah. And it comes back to those questions that we're asking ourselves and being, sometimes it might feel like it's a bit forced to begin with because we've been conditioned, or we've conditioned our mind to think a certain way for so many years. But when we start to make that a new habit, just like anything, it feels awkward in the beginning, but then all of a sudden you find yourself asking better quality questions, so you can find the joy in something where you might not have before, or, that you embrace the challenge instead of resenting it. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so important as to what we've been through this year with the pandemic, that we do take time to take time with other people. The world needs us to step up and, lead with love and to choose happiness, because it really can be, sometimes we don't know where to start. As you say, we have all these old patterns that have been there for a really long time. But once you've made a decision to choose happiness, the how will follow. You just need to take action. You need to take that 5-second do that 5-second rule where, okay, I'm going to choose to be happy. And then within 5 seconds say, what do I need to do that's going to bring some more joy and happiness into my life? And if we don't really know, you just reach out and you ask for somebody. There's always going to be somebody there for you. And if you don't know someone, pull someone off the street. It's a great way of making new friends.
I love it. Very true. I love that. Well, thank you so much. How can our listeners learn more about you or connect with you?
Well, they can connect with me on Instagram, Live to Feel Alive. They could email me if they wanted to at Kym, Kym, at Live to Feel Alive, LiveToFeelAlive.com.au. Website will be coming soon. So that would be awesome.
Amazing. And we'll pop those links into the show notes as well. Thanks again, Kym, for sharing your wisdom. And I'm so grateful for our 16 years of friendship so far. It's been such a beautiful ride, and there's so much wisdom that I'm really excited to continue to learn from you and also share with all of our listeners as well. So thank you so much. Such an awesome episode today with Kym, and she has so much wisdom to share. We would love you to share some of the things that you're taking away from today's episodes and things you're looking to implement, maybe some tips that you picked up on, and particularly around how you can start to create more resilience in your life as well. As we said, you can contact Kym at Instagram on Live to Feel Alive, and we'll pop her contact details into the show notes as well. We're definitely going to have her back on a future episode because she's got so much wisdom to give, and we look forward to continuing to share the journey of how you can live an empowered life following our podcast and our community. So thanks again for your support. Have a beautiful day, and we'll see you on a future podcast.